Welcome, everybody. I am with my friend Jared Littman, the newly elected mayor. Although you're a mayor in waiting as of, what do you call it, mayor-elect? Mayor-elect.
Until
okay.
December 1st.
Until December 1st. So this will go out before that. So
great.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be a part of your podcast here. I've been listening to it for a while. It's an honor to be here.
You're a listener. Awesome.
I am. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I know because you're a homework doer too. One of the things that people have all said about you is that you do your homework, and I've noticed that. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
The campaign part is over.
Phew.
Are you glad of that?
Yes. It was a much better experience than I expected. When I started, I thought of it as something I just had to get through in order to do the job that I was very anxious to do. But really campaigning for that long, I learned so many more issues. I met so many more people, and I feel much more connected and prepared, frankly, to do the job than I realized ahead of time.
So you announced how long ago? And then before you announced, I'm sure there was a process. So how long have you really been doing this?
So I announced January of 2024. Was preparing for that about 3 months or so, but really, having preliminary conversations even before that. And so, so I've been saying since January 24, since I announced, and now it's, almost 22 months ago.
Yeah, that was a much longer campaign than I did it took a while. I was a late announcer because they couldn't find a candidate, to run against Steve Shue. And so I think I
felt like I had to announce early because I was asking so many people for help or money or endorsements, and I felt like I needed to say, this is what you'd be contributing or be a part of.
Yep.
And if you want to be part of a volunteer with me, this is a thing I'm trying to do.
Yeah. No, I remember that, and I think it was a wise move. So I think everybody who's listening knows what the mayor of Annapolis basically does. It's funny when you say mayor, they kind of understand. When you say county executive, they have no idea. So
interesting.
You are the mayor, and you will be the mayor on December 1st.
Yes.
Looking forward to the inauguration, which I believe is going to be at Navy Stadium. Is that?
It is. Mm-hmm. We'll have a ceremony that's open to the public and free to attend, with basically as many seats as we'll need, and then there'll be a ticketed reception to follow.
Awesome. Okay, so what brought you to when did you start thinking of running for mayor? I know you were an alderman were you 4 years or 8 years?
5 years.
5 years. 5 years.
Yeah, so my first year was filling the vacancy created when my predecessor resigned with basically a year left in his term. And so I started in January of 2013. By April, I decided to run for my own term, and I announced that, and then I ran for and got won election for my own 4 years.
Okay.
So I served a total of 5 years. And if I'm anticipating your question of what made me decide.
What made you decide?
So by the end of 2013, I was also on a corporate board. And so I had 3 jobs. I was running my hardware store, doing this corporate board, and I was on the
board of Ace Hardware, right?
Of True Value.
True Value. So oops.
Yeah.
True
that's
Value.
Okay. We're now Ace, so that's not a dirty word.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the time, we were with True Value, and I was going between those 3 jobs, and each of the other jobs were making me smarter about the other 2. And in particular, I mentioned that because the corporate experience, we were doing a strategic plan where the CEO was leading it, and we engaged all of the True Value employees, which were roughly 600 people across the country. And at the same time, I'd go to city council meetings with a staff of roughly 600 people. And I was seeing how we were not engaging our city staff, frankly, the council, including the residents, in ways that I was learning how it was done so much better on that level. Really? And so I kept on having these experiences of, man, if I was mayor, this is how I'd want to do it. And here's an opportunity for us to be better. We can engage better on the budget with residents and the city council. And so I was having those experiences and those thoughts, but I wasn't in a position to run for mayor at the time because I had those other jobs. My kids were younger. And so it was a process of succeeding myself and getting off of all those things. My wife is running the hardware store now.
Yeah.
I got off the corporate board a few years ago, volunteer boards. My kids are older. They're driving. One's in college, one's in high school driving. And so got to the point where I could free myself up to do it.
That's interesting that you were thinking about they were thinking about how to run a business better through communication with staff, and you were thinking about how to run a city better through communication with residents and staff.
Exactly.
And I remember one of the first things that you asked me about when you wanted to sit down and talk about, and it was interesting. You didn't just want to talk about how to win the election. You wanted to talk about governing. And I remember you met with some of my staff as well about some issues that had come up. But you specifically brought up our community engagement and constituent service team, and Vincent Molden and James Kitchen had sort of created it before that, and you wanted to understand how that worked.
I did, and I still do. It's as I campaigned, it was reinforced the need to be really good at that. There were so many different groups of people that felt like either they didn't have a seat at the table, they didn't know how to have a seat at the table. We had one brunch that was specific for business owners who were Black, and there was such frankly, a diversity of businesses, number one, but such a thirst and hunger for more information of how they could be engaged with the city government as a whole, opportunities on how to reach capital, and just things like that. And so I had that sort of experience with so many different communities. And so I made promises to a lot of groups of, yes, we will continue to listen to you after the election to help us be smarter.
I've been working on my State of the County speech, which is coming soon, and trying to figure out how to frame the work that we've done as county government in the moment that the country's in. And particularly I always see the biggest challenge that we have is an anti-government sentiment, and that we have to build trust in government through engagement. And I talk about the things that we've done to make government work better through efficiency. I'm not saying we figured it all out, but it's been the focus. And then the other part is engagement, so that people know that they have a seat at the table, and there's a lot of strategies for that, and it's absolutely, I think, the only way for democracy to survive, to rebuild that trust.
One of the things I've been promising, and I doubt you would have no reason to have heard me say this to any group, but one of the things I've been promising is to model town hall meetings like what you do around the districts around budget time. And so I've said that I'm going to be in each ward each year, at least once a year, where we're going to ask residents about their budget priorities and allow residents to speak up where they are, not asking for them to come to City Hall to let us know their preferences. My goal is to do 2 town hall meetings in each ward per year, having one focused on budget and a second one on everything else, and to also add in neighborhood walkthroughs, so that where there's a community need, Clay Street comes to mind, where we're actually taking some of our leaders and walking down the street with residents, and where they could point out what's important to them. But I didn't know if you had heard me talk about the town halls that I modeled.
No, I didn't know you were talking about the budget town halls. And I got to admit, we did more town halls earlier on, and we did them on a lot of different issues. We did them when we had hard issues like forest conservation. We did them around land use planning. We've gotten our plan done. So I think it's especially appropriate early on. And I tell people who are like thinking about running for office that don't feel like you have to know everything and talk and tell people what you're going to do necessarily. If you have ideas, say them, but listen, ask questions, listen.
Right.
People love to be heard. They need to be heard.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's get into some of the stuff that we may be doing together. I mean, I had a great relationship. I still have a great relationship with Gavin Buckley, who's still mayor until you get sworn in, until that moment. And you never know what he'll do between now and then. So we may have some things up our sleeves. No, we don't. But it's been so important to have an alignment of vision, at least. And it hasn't always been that way between county leaders and city leaders. So we're going to be working on things together. I'm looking forward to that. What's on your agenda? What do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So City Doc comes to mind first for a lot of people, including me. And obviously, that project is queued up in the sense that it's finally through all of the approval processes and the appeals, and so it's ready to get going. We're now through the most recent boat show, so it's started already before, which is great.
Groundbreaking.
And so I'm really excited to get that project done. We obviously see the impact by not doing it, and record floods and the record frequency as well. And so I'm very anxious. And I know the county has been supportive, along with our state and federal partners. No doubt a project that large is going to run into unexpected hurdles. And so as we experience them and navigate through them, no doubt you'll probably be hearing from me on what challenges I'm facing.
You mean you're going to come ask for more money?
Well, I've heard you say a few times when you talk about Gavin that you hear from him when he wants money.
That is part of a mayor's job, just like if you were running a nonprofit organization, is to raise money, because he found out how hard it is to actually raise tax rates to create revenue, and that had to be done in his first term. The city's finances were a mess, and they got them in order and got the bond rating as a result. But yeah, he did did a great job of going to the governor, going to the General Assembly,
Right.
going to our congressional delegation, and going to the county, every level of government above. I do the same thing when we're trying to get grants.
I don't think he gets enough credit, frankly, for how much money he's been able to bring in from outside city government coffers, all the different entities, and probably more that you even mentioned, and how often. And our state partners and you and our governor all deserve credit for being responsive. So I hope to continue those relationships and work together.
And the last one was related to City Dock. We put $2 million in. It was actually Councilwoman Rodvian proposed getting into the budget. We did for the Welcome Center. And I justify that by saying that the city of Annapolis, especially downtown and City Dock, is the favorite destination of Anne Arundel County. It's the place we love to go to play.
Right.
Like, we all love going down, it's just great to have. It's almost like having this huge park. So I feel like it's appropriate for our taxpayers to invest in that as an amenity.
Well, it's as a city representative incoming, I'm very grateful that you have that perspective, because no one requires you to have that perspective, and I'm glad we have an effective advocate with our county councilwoman, Rodvian.
Yeah. So I expect that'll continue. What else? You've talked about, you've got housing issues, obviously, short-term rentals.
So even in current state, so meaning like nothing gets worse, we have a lot of housing issues.
Right.
We have public housing that is in some state of unsafe on some level. We have the voucher program that's at risk from HUD of being underfunded or delayed funding, and that's obviously a huge concern. The city gets $850,000 per month from HUD through HACA through to the voucher program. And that's aside from the public housing itself. We have these big projects on the books. Robinwood is scheduled for redevelopment. The C&I project, Choice Neighborhood Initiative, would redevelop Eastport Terrace and Harbor House in a big way that will impact so many people's lives. And hopefully for the better. It's mixed use, mixed income development. So as we see a federal government pulling away from supporting these housing needs, worst case scenario is quite scary to me. And if we see some of that funding significantly pull back, I, as a representative of the city, will be looking to engage with our county and our state for help in addressing potential homelessness, potential need for wraparound services. And so those are things that are certainly top of mind.
And that's going to be everywhere. We're certainly, our Office of Emergency Management is handling our interagency response, and homelessness is a huge part of that, especially if they do what's in the Big Beautiful Bill and all of that. On HACA, I've seen some progress, though, which has been really rewarding. The city, the county, and HACA work together with some state funds as well to get the units that were not actually inspected and generating revenue, get them inspected and approved and back on the rolls. And so that, I know, has helped. I also know—
They've made huge progress.
Yeah.
They're much closer to getting all of those unlicensed units back to being licensed.
That's what I've heard, So there's more revenue coming in. They have to think of it that way. And I know that one of the recommendations when some folks looked at how the county could help was also these lawsuits are getting in the way of some of the progress. They're taking time and they're taking money. I think it got a little personal, and everybody got kind of dug in. You're now the new kid on the block. You're a party to one of the city is being sued by HACA, right? And also being sued by a group of residents with an attorney.
I think the main lawsuit is I think of it as mostly a lawsuit against a group of residents who are represented by the attorney. I think HACA
by a group of residents.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger issue. I don't think I'll need to confirm where we are with the suit from HACA between us and the HACA.
Okay.
And separately between us and the Historic Annapolis too, which another lawsuit to resolve. The lawsuit that we're mainly talking about here from the residents is based on a prior lawsuit that resulted in a settlement. And so if you extract out what that was settled for to the current residents, you're talking tens of millions of dollars. And that's obviously, for a city budget of $200 million, a situation that could potentially resolve itself even amicably at those sort of money, $10, $20 million. Obviously, it's a huge impact. Other options is that the city just goes to trial and wins, and that's essentially the least expensive option result. And then, of course, you can go to trial and lose. And we don't know where that ends up.
Right.
So there's two concerns here. One is an outcome of the lawsuit, and separately is addressing the underlying concerns that caused the lawsuit,
right?
Whether or not the city's found liable or not.
Yeah. Well, I know that you will focus on trying to resolve that and address the issues. So, and the county has pitched in some money and helped on that.
And that's in the state as well, to give them credit.
And the state as well, yeah. Hacker residents are county residents, so it's all of our problem.
Right. I definitely hope to reset some of those relationships. It's obviously in a lawsuit where people want a monetary payout. It's difficult to just reset a relationship.
Right.
And I know Gavin and his team have tried to resolve these in ways that short of having a lawsuit. So I leave a lot of room for there's good reasons why we are here now, but it is a chance to have a fresh look at these lawsuits and disputes.
So are we going to merge city and county government and make one big happy government?
I get that question or got that question a lot on the campaign trail. And when you get into specifics of what is in the interest of the county to take on those services and would those services actually be as good? Mm-hmm. And so if you have a goal of either providing the same services at lower cost or at the same cost but better results, I think in a lot of those situations it's hard to see where it makes sense to have a real merger. I have experience as being a volunteer member of the Resilience.
A merger of some services, not a merger of the complete.
Right, of the entities.
You're not willing to step down and.
No, I mean honestly, if that was
me be the mayor.
If I thought it was in the best interest of the residents, I would do that.
I know,
but I am not convinced.
I'm not looking for that either.
Yeah, so. Thanks. Where I think the county and the city do a great job collaborating is, as an example, is the Resilience Authority of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County. I'm a volunteer member of that board now. I'll be resigning in the next day or so. There's room for things like that where it's not necessarily a merger. It's not even just plain not a merger, but it is a collaboration of where we can do things better together. Transportation is an area where I think we could probably explore ways where we can be more efficient, work collaboratively. And it's not to say it hasn't been worked on. I'm not trying to create an original idea, but it's furthering and growing that collaboration on transportation in the environment. Stormwater is an area that comes up frequently. A lot of those issues cross boundaries all the time.
Yep.
And so anything that crosses boundaries, we should be looking at ways we could be better partners.
And I should say you did your due diligence on this because it had come up during the campaign, and there's a group of people who's been advocating for years really to do more of that merging. And so we talked, but then I had you sit down with our CAO, Christine Anderson, and others to really dig into what the county's interests were and where there may or may not be.
And, not surprising, these questions have come up for years. So Ms. Anderson was able to share years of studies of each of these issues. Yeah. Right. And so we'll get into those issues and make sure that there's not opportunities to be more efficient. And if there are, I'll come knocking not just for more money, but for ways that we potentially can do something efficient that makes sense for county residents.
And for folks who don't know, there's a calculation of how the city's property taxes work based on the services that are being shared, what's being provided by the county versus the city. Because the city residents pay money into the county for those services, and then they pay into the city for those services. So,
and I think it's frankly worth relooking at things like mutual aid agreements. Not that they certainly benefit both county and city residents, but we want to make sure that as development has increased in certain areas, that we're still they still make sense from a monetary perspective.
Right. What about public water access and in the environment? You hear about those much during the campaign?
Yeah, and so when I talk about city dock as the environment, I try to quickly pivot to the point that city dock is and sea level rise and water level rise isn't the only environmental issue that we're caring about, and that in some areas it's a heat sink in parts of the city because they don't have trees and they don't have access to parks and green spaces, and that's always been a passion of mine. We didn't talk about my background, but from an environmental engineering perspective, environmental law perspective, I've been caring and passionate about those issues. So I really want to make sure we do a good job of that. The city has made strides with the public access plan and water quality plan separately. It's unfunded though, and so largely unfunded. So I think there's something like 72 or 82 different spots in the city that through the work Eric Lashinsky and Christian Kubiak have done to identify spots in the city to improve water access. There's identified areas. Some of them are easier than others, including like street end parks and fixing some bulkheads. I know that starts to get more expensive when you talk about bulkheads, but we need to figure out how to get some funding for those projects. It's hugely important. We talked about the housing redevelopments. Some of those projects, like the Eastport Terrace and Harbor House, they are so close to the water and have such incredibly poor access to that same water. And so as part of the redevelopment that we're talking about, if we can show that the city actually truly cares about each community, each resident, and is focused on providing more access, better access, safer access for all residents, I think we can go a long way to rebuilding trust in government and what we can do for all people.
Affordable housing with water access would be pretty unique to Annapolis and pretty great.
It is, but you go to especially like the HACA headquarters, right on the water. And it's on the other side of the building. One side of the building is water. The other side of the building are these communities, public housing communities. But because of tree lines and bad trails and no maintenance, they just don't have access there.
Yeah. I remember when I came in, I was lucky that I had a guy named Pete Barron working for me who understood the way legislative bodies work and how important a relationship is between the executive branch and the legislative branch. So you've got a largely new, some older city council members, newly elected, and I've noticed that you have all worked together on the campaign. I mean, maybe it helps that you're all of the same political party, so there was a coordinated effort, coordinated campaign. And what do you see as do you have strategies? I mean, Gavin would take them on international trips, and what's your strategy going to be to make sure that everybody works together? Yeah,
so a big part of my job is making sure that the council's working together. Obviously, in a city, it's a little different setup than the county because the mayor is part of the council and also the CEO. So we're doing a few things off the bat. Number one, so we happen to have 4 returning council members and 4 new council members. And so I've made some pairings for mentor-mentee relationships, cleared it with all of the incoming, returning council members, and obviously was strategic about it, trying to pair up people who not only are experienced and with less experience, but where we can avoid some cliques. So trying to avoid any particular groups from being segregated or left off. And so I want to make sure all these relationships are collaborative, that everybody is appreciated, everybody is valued, and everybody could come along. So I think from those mentor-mentee relationships will be helpful. Number 2, we will be having a short retreat in Annapolis. We're not leaving anywhere, where we're going to be talking about ways that we want to be treated and expectations for each other, of how we can work best collaboratively.
This is before you take office?
Yes. The retreat will actually be just after take office.
Just after?
Yes.
Interesting, because I remember when, as you were saying that, I was remembering we went out to dinner with all 7 council members. Only one had been an incumbent. So they were all new. So they hadn't taken office. I hadn't taken office. There was no open meetings requirement. We were allowed to all meet together during that time. And how valuable it was to just have dinner together and socialize a little bit.
Right. And so, on my list is making sure everything we're doing is cleared by our legal office to make sure we're complying with the Open Meetings Act and everything. But we, having served on the city council, one of the experiences I had was the first budget came out when I'm on the council, and then it got attacked by all 8 council members. And so I talked with the mayor of, why is it done that way? Why aren't we having conversations in the fall? Now, granted, I wasn't a council member in the fall, but it was confirmed from the other my colleagues those conversations didn't exist. So why aren't we having these conversations in the fall so all 8 members could say, this is what's most important to me, this is what I can't live without, this is where I can give. And so when I'm preparing a budget, it should already reflect conversations and collaboration with the city council members. In any organization, government, nonprofits, for-profit, everyone always says communication needs improving. And so I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to get this right, but I'm going to be making sincere effort to do regular communication. So that's another thing I'm doing. So the third thing is setting up one-on-one meetings to make sure that I get a chance to hear from the 8 incoming council members, my colleagues, what's important to them, and try to develop strategies where I can make each of them feel successful, and not just feel, but actually be successful, so we can begin to create trust and respect for each other. I want to have those relationships go as quickly as possible to get there.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question that was asked of me when I was running for office. The question was, if at the end of all of this, if you could accomplish one thing, what would it be?
If it was
hopefully you'll accomplish more than one thing. But
yeah, so do I. I guess if it's only one thing, it's to have all city residents feel like my government cares about me. That I feel like me as a resident of the city, my government respects me, cares about me, has been responsive, they've been engaged, and I am a part of my city that cares.
That's it. That's good. Great answer. I'm not judging your answer or anything, but I will say that mine was very similar in that instead of saying a policy, legislation that you get passed or a building you get constructed or something like that, it was in the minds of the people of the city.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's partly, I would say that's not an answer I would have given in January of 24 before I started campaigning for 2 years. But from doing and having those experiences, just hearing over and over again from people who felt like it doesn't matter who I vote for, nothing changes for me, you're all going to do what you're going to do. And just hearing that message is very disheartening.
Yeah.
And certainly the environment that we're in right now on a federal level with a certain level of chaos, that I hope that people feel like that a Littman administration is professionally run, that it's not chaotic. You don't need to have an alderman's or mayor's phone number to get anything done because it works the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
Yeah, and if people feel that maybe it wasn't true that government is the source of all evil and that in fact it is their government at the local level, maybe they'll be open to the idea that other levels of government also have their best intentions and we can save our system of democracy. And I mean, I don't trust in all institutions, but people are at the point where it's almost like if you're an institution, you're bad, and that's a dangerous place to be. So.
And along those lines, when I started, we had a different presidency, and so as it's evolved in this current presidency, part of my mindset has been I can't control everything, and so what are the things I can have an impact on? It's this local level, and I want residents to feel like, whether or not they feel like they can have an impact on the national level, global level, that they can have a positive impact here. And so I tell people that your job doesn't end when you vote. I want people to continue to be engaged, volunteer on boards and commissions, come out to public hearings, share your concerns, and help us do better.
Well, I am very excited about your plans and your attitude about it all.
Thank you.
I was at the event at Level where you got everybody together on election night, and I was just sort of touched by how humble and genuinely, like the fact that you don't really like public speaking. You don't really need this job, actually. You run and
there's easier ways to spend my time. Right.
But it is clearly a heartfelt desire to make the city better and make government work and build trust. So
thank you. Appreciate
I'll do everything I can, and thanks for joining us, and good luck.
Great. And so how do I get access to that bank account again for when the city needs money?
Yeah, we guard that pretty closely, but come to the budget town halls and tell us what you think. Huh?
Very good. All right. Thanks so much for having me here. It's been an honor. You're listening to the Pittman and Friends podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button, share with a friend, and join us for the next episode.